get down. So get out your seat and jump around. Jump around. Jump around. Jump around. Jump up and get down. Jump, jump, jump. Everybody jump, 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 everybody jump, 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 jump. I'm the cream of the crop. I rise to the top. I never eat a pig, cause a pig is a better yet, a Terminator. Like Arnold Schwarzenegger, trying to play me out like as if my name was Sega. But I ain't going out like no punk. Get used to one style AO when I might switch it up and around. Then buck, get down, put out your head and then you wake up in the dawn of the dead. I'm coming to get ya, I'm coming to get ya. Spitting out lyrics, homie, I with ya. I came to get down, I came to get down. So get out your seat and jump around. Jump around. Jump around. Jump around. Jump up and get down. Jump, jump, jump. Everybody jump, 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 jump. Everybody jump, 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 jump. Everybody jump, 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 jump. Everybody jump, jump, jump. Yeah. This is dedicated to jump. The third, kick over. Grab your boots back.
Good morning, everyone. It's 20 past 11 on Tuesday, the 23rd of February 2021, and we are live from the Prince of Wales School in Dorchester, and it is time for our whole school assembly. Let's see who's here this morning. We've got a big hello from Elsie and Henry. Good morning, Elsie and Henry. Thank you very much for joining us. Hello from Thomas. Welcome, Thomas. Hello from Jacob Archer. Great to have you joining us today. Good morning. Hope you have a great day from EVP. Oh, thank you, Evie. I hope you have a great day too. Hello, everybody from Rosa. Thank you very much for joining us, Rosa. Now, this morning, we're very lucky to have a mystery guest joining us, and I'm very delighted to welcome Maria. Hello, Maria.
Hi, hello, Prince of Wales School. Lovely to be with you.
Morning, Maria. Are you all right?
Yeah, I'm well, thanks. And after all that music and jumping, I'm inspired. I'm going to be straight out in the garden after this, leaping up and down.
Excellent. We are taking part in a February Fitness Challenge, and so far, the children have collectively walked, cycled, scootered, skipped all the way from Dorchester to Paris, and then from Paris to Berlin. And on Monday, we managed to work our way to Warsaw in Poland, and our next challenge is to get to Moscow in Russia. So
fantastic! It's a very well-travelled school.
All the way from Dorchester to Moscow. Now, Maria, you are the Community Engagement Officer at Dorset History Centre, and you're here a little bit this morning to tell us about Dorset History Centre.
Yeah, a little bit to tell you about Dorset History Centre, which is really not very far from your school. I would think that a lot of you know the big castle-type building at the top of town, and very likely you've been there maybe to have a look at the keep. And we're next door but one. So what is the Dorset History Centre? From the outside, we look like a big, uninteresting sort of a box, really. But what we've got inside our box is more than 1,000 years of documents and records to do with Dorset. So you can see just a few little examples there on the screen. You can see an old postcard from over at Swanage. You can see a photograph there of lovely George Beck, who was a First World War soldier and kept a little diary, which you can see right down in the bottom corner there. And you can also see a beautiful medieval manuscript there, which is all beautifully illuminated. And hopefully you can see that little sleepy head with his nightcap on in the very top bit of that picture. And those sort of heads go all the way around that beautiful document. So we have things like that. And of course, we have things that we take in now which are born digital. So some of our records have never been on paper or parchment or glass or film. They just come to us in a digital format. Thanks, Gary. Sorry. Right. So what we do, we look after handwritten letters and diaries. That's one of the things we look after. So really quite recent in the history of the world that people have been typing, let alone that people have been creating things on computers. So almost everything that we have that's more than 100 years old, at least, is handwritten. And this storybook, which you can see the cover on the screen there, this storybook was written by a girl called Mabel. You can probably see her name on the right there, just underneath the roses. It was written by Mabel Wright when she was 10 years old. And it was written more than 130 years ago. And it's a story that she wrote called The History of a Doll. So I'd like to tell you a little bit more about that story. Mabel wrote the story as if she really was her new doll. And the places she goes and the people she meets and the things she does tell us a lot about Mabel's life in the past. So I'm going to read you the story that Mabel wrote, and you will hear all the things that happened to her doll, which are really pretty much the things that happened to Mabel during these few days. So listen in really carefully. Can you hear any differences between Mabel's doll's life and your own? If you can, it'd be fantastic if you can type them up for us. So have a listen into the story and see what you make of it. So more than 130 years old. It's called The History of a Doll, written by Mabel Wright on the 12th of December, 1889. I'm about to tell you the story of my life. I suppose you know I am a doll. The first I can remember about myself is being brought a long way in a big box with some more dolls. When we arrived at a shop in London, we were taken out of the box and put in a room where there's some other little wax and china people. Shortly afterwards, I, with several of my companions, were taken downstairs into the shop. I was put in a glass case and stood on the window. One day a week later, a little girl with her mamma and two brothers were looking in the shop window. The little girl asked her mamma if she would buy me, as it was her birthday, and her mamma had brought her out so that she may choose a present of a doll. They came into the shop and asked the price of me, and the young lady who was serving the customers told them. After a little time, I was purchased by the little girl, and she was delighted with me. I was kissed over and over again as I was being carried home. At last we arrived at a large and beautiful house. I was taken upstairs to the nursery where Nurse was sewing. She looked up as we entered and said, "Oh, what a lovely doll, Gertrude." She admired my clothes very much and promised to make me another hat. I was then introduced to my companions, who were sitting round a table waiting for their tea. There was one miss who had been a great traveller, for she had just been brought from Japan. Another, whose name was Rosie, was certainly the eldest of the family, seemed rather vexed at my arrival. But Jeanette, a very pretty doll with flaxen hair and blue eyes, began to be very friendly and told me what a nice home it was. When we had finished tea, my dear mistress came home and played with us, and then she found a pretty cradle and put me to bed. The next morning, Gertrude came and soon dressed me after she had had her breakfast and told me she was going to stay with her aunt in the country and that I should go too. We soon started to the station and enjoyed our long ride in the train. After about 2 hours, we arrived at a pretty country station where flowers were growing by the side of the platform. Everything was bright and cheerful. I saw a very kind-looking lady waiting there, whom Gertrude recognised as her aunt. We jumped out of the train and ran up to Mrs. Burton, for that was her name, who took Gertrude by the hand, and we drove away in a fly down a pretty lane, and at last stopped at a large country house which was nearly covered with jasmine and roses. At the door we were met by Mr. Burton, who led us into the house and rang the bell for Nurse. We went with her upstairs, and she took off our jackets and hats, after which we had some tea and were safely tucked up in bed. My mistress soon fell asleep, but I lay awake, brooding over the events of the day for a long while until I fell asleep. My mistress was calling me by my name when I awoke in the morning, and after having dressed, took me down to breakfast. Then Mrs. Burton said we must go for a walk, and Gertrude found some pretty wildflowers and made a daisy chain for me. In the afternoon, Gertrude asked Mrs. Burton if she would help her make some clothes for me, and she gladly consented and fetched a large parcel of pretty pieces of stuff from a large cabinet in the room. Gertrude chose a piece of lovely blue silk with some white lace. They soon made this into a very pretty frock for me. We had a very pleasant holiday there. The only thing that spoilt it was that I had a very bad fall and broke one of my arms. My little mistress cried very much, but her auntie said that when we got home back to London, she could get me a new arm. A few days after, as we went home, I was put in a wardrobe until my new arm was ready. I learnt a good deal of knowledge while I was in the wardrobe. There were some beautiful silk and satin dresses which told me about the balls and parties they had been to and about the lovely songs they had heard. There was a beautiful Indian shawl which told me a lot about black people, and she told me about coming a long way across the sea and on the train. And I used to tell my friends what I did when I was staying in the country. One day, when my friend the shawl was in the middle of a very interesting tale, I was suddenly taken from the wardrobe and kissed over and over again. It was my dear mistress who had bought a new arm for me. I was soon all right again. We went to her mamma in the drawing room. I soon found that there was to be a party the next day, and I was to have on my new blue silk dress and a pair of new shoes, which I had not seen before. I heard Gertrude's mamma ask her if she knew where I had first come from, and then she told us that I was made in Germany, where a very great number of dolls are made every year, and that we have some beautiful cousins made in France. Having told you the greater part of my history, I will now say goodbye. Well, I hope you enjoyed that story. It's very strange to listen to a story written by somebody aged 10 so very long ago, and I wonder what you make of it. Does it sound like a very different life to yours? You may guess that Mabel was quite a wealthy young lady writing that story, but do let me know your thoughts.
There was a big focus on parties, wasn't there?
There was a big focus on parties and holidays, really, were the main thrust of it, and shopping.
It's amazing
Not a bad life.
how writing can come to life after all those years.
After so long, and I think she was a pretty impressive writer for age 10. I'm sure there's some 10-year-olds watching this and thinking that's quite a long piece that she wrote there, wasn't it? With quite a lot of detail, the country station, the two different houses that she's at. She talks about going off in a fly at one point, which sounds rather odd, doesn't it? But that's really just a little carriage that would go very fast. So a little light carriage that they would be picked up in from the station with a horse or a pony that could nip them back home, as it were.
I'd love to know what people listening thought of that story, and also if they've got any questions for Maria about her role or what the Dorset History Centre does. I've visited the Dorset History Centre a number of times. I studied history at Thomas Hardy School, and as part of my project, I went and looked through the archives at Dorset.
Did
History
you? That's brilliant.
Now, but yes, and it's a fascinating resource, and there's so much history in there, and obviously it's a resource that's always expanding, isn't it?
Always expanding. I mean, as I say, our oldest document is more than 1,000 years old. It's a little piece of parchment like this, but we are still adding documents now. Absolutely. So a lot of the things we add now are things like recordings of older people telling us about their life and how it's been in Dorset and what sort of changes. I think in the last 100 years there have been so many changes. That it's quite difficult probably for children to imagine that. But for people who are kind of in their 80s and 90s now, they did grow up in a really different sort of world, you know. So we need to collect their memories as well.
And recently been learning about World War II, and I know you'll have a number of resources there that link to that. And I believe you've got a letter that was written by Winston Churchill.
Yes. Winston's letters are everywhere, you know. Yeah, no, Winston Churchill came down here a bit. He came here during First World War, actually, and commissioned a cordite factory over near Wareham. Cordite was a kind of explosive which was made from conkers, actually. Children used to collect conkers, and they would go to the factory and be made into an explosive. And it was Winston Churchill who came down and commissioned that factory, as well as his involvement.
Lana says that she really liked the story and that she's
really liked it.
She's never made a dress herself.
Oh, okay. Well, I think that's Lana's project for this afternoon then, isn't it? Definitely. Find some scrap of material, or failing that, some kitchen roll, and decorate it and make a little dress for one of your dolls. It won't take much more than that. A bit of sellotape, a bit of string.
Holly said that was amazing from Holly, and lots of thumbs up.
Oh, thanks, Holly. Thank you.
Mrs. Howe loved the story as well, so it's great to hear what everyone thought. Now, I've got a very special video to share with you all that's been actually filmed inside of the Dorset History Centre itself. And actually, this video is special because it was filmed in a special way, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. I mean, we're always trying to find a way to get over to people the scale of the material that we looked after. So this was filmed by one of my colleagues in Dorset Council with a 360-degree camera. So you'll see the camera was mounted on a trolley. We're always bringing things in and out of the History Centre on a trolley. That's what we do. So we go in here when people come in and they say, you know, I'd like to see that letter or that story or that plan or that drawing from 1742. Well, we have to be able to find it. So every one of our documents has a special number, and the special number relates to whereabouts it is in our repository or in our strong rooms. So you can see there that there are lots and lots of boxes on shelves. Those are all special type of boxes that keep the documents very well.
And Maria, can you explain the special type of shelving? Because our children may not have seen the type of
shelving. The shelving's really cool. So you see there those long shelving stacks and that gap that's going up it. On the front of that, there's some handles there, and you turn those handles round like a wheel and it moves the whole stack. In that way, we can squeeze in as many documents as possible. We're still running out of room, mind you, but it's absolutely amazing. You're shifting something like 2.5 tons when you move one of those shelves. And we've had visitors over who've come to us who are wheelchair users and so on, and they can still park up by one of those and move the shelves. They're so well balanced and they're on some runners. So that's partly how we squeeze it all in, really. So we've got two long repositories like this.
These are really like moving walls. You can move the walls of shelving and you can create that additional space, which is very cool indeed.
Absolutely. That's how we squeeze it in. We've got over 8 miles of shelving. So you'd have to walk from Dorchester to Weymouth just about to cover the amount of shelving that we've got. But we are still, as I say, rather running out of space. You can see those big silver pipes there. They're all to do with air conditioning. Have actually now been replaced because probably, I think like your school as well, we're very keen to be as green as we can at the Dorset History Centre. And our electricity bills used to be absolutely enormous. And we've now got some photovoltaic panels on the roof, so that's helped with that. We've got some new insulation as well, which helps. So we do everything we can to try and cut that electricity bill. And we have, in fact, cut it to about 1/3 of its original amount.
Now, if the children want to find out more about the Dorset History Centre, what can they do?
Absolutely. Now, I would say go on over to our website. Now, you can see there, you could also contact us on Twitter or follow us on Twitter. It'd be lovely if Prince of Wales School wants to send us a little tweet and we can follow each other, because maybe you guys will be able to come in, some of you, and do a visit with us soon. Much like your head had back in the day. We love to have schools come and have a look at the science of the building or documents to do with a particular period. But if you go over to our website, as you can see there at the bottom, if you go to that website and you have a look at our education and learning resources, you will find some Second World War resources there and resources on other subjects as well. There's an Indian adventure there, which is quite a fun pack to go through if you're looking for something historic to do from home. So don't be afraid. Get in touch with us, have a chat with us if you've got projects coming up. There's usually some documents or some photographs or some recordings that we can supply you with.
Maria, thank you so much for your time this morning. It's been really great to find out more about the Dorset History Centre and share that story from the past as well. We'll be back at 4 o'clock for our next live broadcast when I'm going to share lots of your work from today. Thank you very much again, Maria.
Thanks everyone. Have a good day.
This is Mr Spracklen's favourite. She'll be coming round the mountain when she comes. She'll be coming round the mountain when she comes. She'll be coming round the mountain. Coming round the mountain. Coming round the mountain when she comes. Singing I, yippee, yippee, I. Singing I, yippee, yippee, I. Singing I, yippee, I, yippee, I, yippee, yippee, I. And we'll all go out to meet her when she comes. Yee-haw! And we'll all go out to meet her when she comes. And we'll all go out to meet her. All go out to meet her. All go out to meet her when she comes. Singing aye, aye, yippee, yippee, aye. Singing aye, aye, yippee, yippee, aye. Singing aye, aye, yippee, aye, aye, yippee, aye, aye, yippee, yippee, aye. She'll be driving 6 white horses when she comes. She'll be driving 6 white horses when she comes. She'll be driving 6 white horses, driving 6 white horses, driving 6 white horses when she comes. Singing aye, aye, yippee, yippee, aye. Singing aye, aye, yippee, yippee, aye. Yeehaw! Singing aye, aye, yippee, aye, aye, yippee, aye, aye, yippee, yippee, aye. And we'll all have chicken and dumpling when she comes. And we'll all have chicken and dumpling when she comes. And we'll all have chicken and dumplings. All have chicken and dumplings. All have chicken and dumplings when she comes. Singing aye, aye, yippee, yippee, aye. Yeehaw! Singing aye, aye, yippee, yippee, aye. Singing aye, aye, yippee, aye, aye, yippee, aye, aye, yippee, yippee, aye. One more time. Singing aye, aye, yippee, yippee, aye. Singing aye, aye, yippee, yippee, aye. Yeehaw!